I haven't done a water change on this tank in 6 months, but the fish are thriving. Let me show you how I did it. So I set up this aquarium about 6 months ago. And the reason that I haven't had to do many water changes is these terrestrial plants. But I'll get there. Let me start with the substrate and tell you guys how I set up this aquarium. So I set up this aquarium like I do most of my other tanks. In the bottom, I've got a layer of gravel, and then on top of that, a layer of aqua soil, and then a layer of sand. And you can see here, it is looking like pretty murky and dirty at this point, but that's kind of the vibe that I'm going for with this aquarium. Sort of this bottom of the jungle, sort of murky, botanical filled kind of mess that's just perfect for the fish that live on the bottom here. And the aqua soil that's in this tank, it was originally intended for plants like these, stem plants and other fast growing plants that would use the nutrients. But as this tank evolved, it became for the terrestrial plants. So for this aquarium, these plants are really the star of the show, and they make everything work that I'm doing here. You can see we've got this beautiful couple of monsteras here that's getting its first fenestrated leaves. There's a ton of pothos I think it's converting into giant pothos. These leaves are just absolutely massive and tough. And then there's a peace lily here as well. And all of these plants together make this whole system work. They are the reason that I don't have to do water changes. And inside the tank, you can see they've got these massive root systems that are trailing all the way down the hardscape, and they're going into the substrate and using that aqua soil. I'm sure the monsteras especially have roots just all the way across the bottom of this thing at this point. And I do have a normal filter in this aquarium. It's right here. You can probably see some of the surface agitation. And that's the main purpose of it, is just to keep the water moving and just to make sure that there's enough oxygen getting into the system. But in terms of overall filtration and taking out ammonia, nitrates, and nitrites, that's the plants. They're doing 90% of that. And in most planted aquariums, the main reason you do a water change is to get rid of nitrates. There'll be sort of a buildup over time as the ammonia gets processed into nitrites and then nitrates. And plants like this, they take out all three of those elements. And in fact, plants like this and plants inside the aquarium, they prefer ammonia over all of those. So I'm pretty confident that I could just take the filter out of here and the aquarium would thrive just all on its own. In fact, these plants would even do better because there would be less competition for ammonia with the beneficial bacteria. But I'm leaving it in just to move the water around. These plants will also remove trace elements that we don't always test for when we're testing our aquarium water. Like they'll remove excess iron, calcium, all sorts of trace elements that we aren't going to see on our tests. And they'll take that just right out of the water. And that makes me confident that I don't need to do water changes on this tank. Whenever I test it, all of the parameters are perfect. And that's thanks to my green friends here. And they make me really excited. I absolutely love this tank. It is just super eye-catching in the room. It makes my office just feel like kind of this jungly oasis. And the fish absolutely love this tank. There's about 17 cardinal tetras in here. There's also 6 peppered corydoras and 1 bushy lemon pleco, whose name is Chester. And the cories especially love this tank because it's so low light in here that they feel just so safe to be inside. Whenever I go into the tank to adjust things, maybe move some plants around, stuff like that, they don't really mind. They will let me kind of get right up next to them, and they are just so chilled out in this tank. And I think that's because there's so much cover above and so much of the light being blocked out that they just feel like they're in this dark little cave sort of paradise. And they've been breeding like absolute crazy in here. It seems like every other day I'm seeing them sort of moving around the center of the tank trying to breed. And I find eggs all over this thing all of the time. And the cardinals are doing super well too. They just love all of the roots that are coming down in here. They love hiding around them. They're super chilled out. And at nighttime, when the light goes off, I see them sort of flitting around, constantly moving about. And I've read that that's breeding, mating behavior. So who knows? Maybe some cardinal babies and maybe some Cory babies. We'll have to see what the future holds. And as for Chester, the pleco, Chester loves this place. There's so much wood in here for him to latch onto and eat, so much just detritus all over the place. It is just perfect for our little guy. But as for the plants inside the tank, you can see I've got some stems here, and they're a little bit experimental. The plants inside, they do a lot better if they're low light plants, just because so much light is blocked out by the overhanging plants here. So these stems in the center, they're not doing especially well, but they're experimental. And the cardinals really like them as sort of a place to hide in the center of the tank. So it kind of brings them more into the foreground. But there's Anubias dotted all around the tank, and that's doing super well. All of the Anubias is thriving. And Anubias is a low light plant, so it makes sense that it would be doing so well in here. So I really think that this is one of my healthiest aquariums, and I can really tell that because of the behavior of the fish. They just love it in here. And since startup, I haven't had any problems at all with them. And in terms of excess algae or anything like that, this glass is always totally clear. And there's just not a whole lot of light down here, which is kind of a benefit. And I highly recommend this kind of thing if you want to focus on plants that are above the aquarium. I know it's not for everybody, and I don't want this in all of my tanks. In my other tanks, I have plenty of plants that are growing below, and some tanks that have nothing growing above. And I really like that. Each tank can be a little bit different, and this is one of my most different tanks in my house. So it brings me a lot of joy, and I love seeing this just green mass grow and grow every week. But I really do think that this tank is super healthy. And I'm not advocating for no water changes. If you need to do a water change, you should do a water change. It's mostly just staying on top of your water parameters and paying attention to what's happening with your tank and handling it in a way that your tank needs. But for this tank, it's totally stable. It's a perfect ecosystem here, honestly. I could take out this filter and the whole thing would be totally fine. And honestly, this was really easy to set up. I set up, some hardscape inside that I really enjoy the look of, set up a nice substrate system for plant growth, and then just attached these plants. And then I sat back and watched them grow along with the fish inside. So overall, it's a very low maintenance, easy setup, and I highly recommend it. But thanks so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate you all. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of the tank. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. And check out some of my other videos. They're probably on screen right now. See you in the next one.